All right, let's talk cloud bills. If you're in tech, but maybe not finance, that monthly bill from your cloud provider can look, well, like it's written in another language, right? It's this huge, mysterious number. So today, we're going to crack that code. We are going to break down the absolute fundamentals of cloud costs so you can turn that confusing bill into something you can actually understand and, more importantly, do something about. Ready? Let's get into it.
Okay, so before we jump in, just the quick legal stuff. This is module 2 of our bigger tutorial, and it's all based on a really comprehensive report from Virtualization Options LLC. Now, remember, this is all for general guidance. It is not professional, financial, or legal advice. So, as always, make sure you chat with your own financial and legal experts before you make any big moves. All right, disclaimer done. Let's get to the good stuff. So here's what we're going to cover. First up, the great cost shift. This is the single biggest change in how we think about IT spending. Then we'll get into flexibility's hidden price. And yeah, you'll see how the cloud's best feature can also be its biggest danger. After that, we're going to do a little anatomy of your bill to see where all that money is really going. And we'll wrap it all up with the new FinOps mindset you need to actually get a handle on this stuff. All right, first section, the great cost shift. Look, if you take away only one thing from this entire discussion, let it be this. It's so simple, but it changes everything. We have stopped buying our technology and started renting it. Just think about it for a second. In the, old days, your company would go out and buy a big physical server, a real piece of hardware. It would sit in a data center, maybe humming away, maybe not, but you owned it. The cloud just completely flips that on its head. Now, those giant servers are virtualized. They're sliced and diced into these tiny, rentable pieces of compute power, storage, networking, you name it. And you rent them by the second or the minute. You're not a homeowner anymore. You're basically a tenant in this gigantic digital apartment building.
And this slide, this lays it out perfectly. The old world versus the new world. Over on the left, you've got the traditional data center. This was what we call a capital expense, or CapEx. That means you drop a huge pile of cash up front to buy all your servers. The good news? The cost was fixed. It was predictable. But on the right, that's the cloud world. This is an operational expense, OpEx. You're renting. And that means your costs are totally variable. They can swing up and down like crazy depending on how much you use. It's pure pay-as-you-go. And honestly, that one little shift from CapEx to OpEx, it changes the entire game. So that whole pay-as-you-go thing, it leads us right into our next topic. Because all that flexibility sounds amazing, right? And it is. But it's also a massive double-edged sword. There's a hidden price to all that power. I mean, look at the pros. They're huge. You can scale up instantly, go from zero to handling like Super Bowl levels of traffic in minutes, and you only pay for what you're actually using. Awesome. But the flip side, it's way, way more complex. And if you're not careful, that same awesome flexibility can lead to costs just exploding. Think about it. Any engineer with a credit card can spin up 1,000 servers. That is an incredible amount of power, and as you can imagine, it can be incredibly dangerous for the company's budget. And listen, this isn't some abstract idea. The report we're drawing from gives a perfect example, and I'm quoting here. A development environment left running over a weekend can cost hundreds of dollars. Just let that sink in for a second. One person, one tiny mistake, forgetting to turn off a test server on a Friday, and boom. You've just wasted hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars over a single weekend, all for literally zero business value. That is the hidden price of flexibility. Okay, so if it's that easy for costs to get out of control, then it's absolutely crucial we understand what we're even paying for in the first place, right? So let's do it. Let's dissect one of these bills and figure out where all the money is actually going. And this is really interesting. When you look at a typical cloud bill, it can seem super complicated, but this chart just cuts right through all that noise. For most companies, the biggest chunk of the pie, we're talking a massive 40 to 60% of the entire bill, is just one thing: compute. These are your virtual machines, basically the engines that are running all your code. So if you're looking for a place to save money, this is it. This is always, always the first place you should look. But of course, it's not just about compute. The rest of the bill is made up of these other core things. You've got storage, pretty straightforward. That's where all your files and data live. Then there's networking. You can think of that like the toll roads for your data moving around. And then you have all these managed services, things like databases or powerful analytics tools that save your developers a ton of time. But yeah, they definitely come with a premium price tag. And then
Then there's everything else. The little things. We're talking about tiny charges for every API call, for every log entry, for every little backup. And when you look at them one by one, they look like nothing, right? Just pennies. But here's the trap. When you're operating at scale, those pennies add up to dollars. And those dollars, well, they can turn into a real fortune. It is the absolute classic death by 1,000 cuts. All these tiny, almost invisible charges just quietly add up until they're a huge, painful part of your final bill.
Which brings us to our last section. And honestly, this is probably the most important one. Because just knowing what's on the bill, that's only half the battle. If you really want to get a handle on cloud costs, you need a totally new way of thinking, a new FinOps mindset. This isn't just about saving money anymore. It's about changing the whole culture.
See, here's the key. You just can't look at a giant bill and go tell an engineer, hey, spend less. It doesn't work that way. The source material puts it perfectly. Cost optimization requires understanding both the technical and business context of every resource. You have to be able to connect what's happening in the code to what's showing up on the invoice. You have to stop asking just, how much does this thing cost, and start asking, what business value is this thing providing? That's the shift.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. I want you to really consider this. Is your most expensive thing in the cloud also your most valuable thing? Because figuring out the answer to that question, that's the absolute heart of FinOps. It's about moving away from just cutting costs and starting to make smart investments. And we're going to get into exactly how you can do that in our next module. Thanks for joining me.